And in the darkest hour before dawn, as the wind tore at the gables and the candlelight trembled across the walls, Elias realized a truth that would haunt him forever. The ring did not merely compel action. It claimed identity. It had begun to rewrite the contours of his self, to map his fears, desires, and memories onto its ancient consciousness. He was no longer merely a possessor. He was an instrument, a conduit, a new thread in the tapestry of souls that the ring had long collected. Resistance was illusion, freedom a memory that belonged to those who had come before. The whispers crescendoed, not in sound but in inevitability, as if the very air around him vibrated with the chorus of the loss. Elias fell to his knees, the gem warm and unyielding against his skin, and understood with a clarity that was at once exquisite and terrible. He had been chosen, and the ring would see its claim fulfilled, as it had with countless others before him. Blackwood Manor slept no more. Its walls, its shadows, its very stones were attentive, and the ring thrummed with anticipation. Elias Thorne, once a man of curiosity and reason, had become enmeshed in a destiny beyond comprehension. The whispers filled every corner of his mind, threading through dreams and waking alike, and he knew that he could never escape. He had been drawn into the dark orbit of the ring, and the darkness, patient and eternal, had begun to close its inexorable grip. The days at Blackwood Manor had become an indistinguishable continuum of shadow, light, and whisper. Elias Thorne awoke each morning to find a ring warm upon his finger, as though it had never slept, as though it had been active throughout the night, weaving its influence through his very soul. Mirrors now betrayed not only his reflection, but a subtle, spectral overlay. The faint, tremulous outline of previous wearers, their faces contorted with despair and resignation. It was a silent gallery, each gaze fixed upon him with the certainty that he would join them, that he was already halfway lost to the same fate. Isolation had become complete. Servants had long ago departed, dissuaded by rumors, unease, or perhaps by an instinct they could not name. The village beyond the hills lay distant and indifferent, its people mere phantoms against the pressing presence of the house. Yet even in solitude, Elias was not alone. The whispers continued without pause, threading through the manor like living tendrils. At times they were imperceptible, mere murmurs brushing against the edges of consciousness. At others, they were insistent, insidious, as though the ring itself had grown bold enough to assert its will openly. Your mind is ours. Your desires are ours. You will remember only what we allow. He began to notice the subtle erosion of his personality, a quiet dissolution that he could neither halt nor fully perceive. His journals, once meticulous and precise, were filled with half-formed thoughts, sketches of impossible symbols, and fragmented reflection. Tasks that had once required effort now seemed trivial or irrelevant. He found himself wandering from room to room, drawn by the faint pulse of the gem, compelled to examine the shadows in corners, the reflections in glass, the silent recesses of the manor. His appetite waned, His pulse weakened, yet the compulsion to obey the ring's unseen suggestions only intensified. One morning, as he traced the contours of the gem with trembling fingers, Elias realized a new horror. His memories were no longer his own. Names, events, conversations, familiar and past recollections, now blurred with experiences he had not lived. He glimpsed faces in the mirrors that were not his, glimpses of emotions that belonged to those who had worn the ring before. Their despair, their obedience, their silent surrender had begun to overlay his own identity. And the gem pulsed, ever steady, ever insistent, a heartbeat that was not his own, but one that he could no longer separate from himself. The house, attuned to the ring's will, seemed to conspire in this erosion. Floors creaked with anticipation, doors opened at a whisper, and even the wind, rushing through broken windows and chimneys, carried hints of voices, soft, urgent, coaxing, and sometimes cruel. Shadows lengthened and contorted, forming patterns that seemed deliberately arranged, as though the walls themselves had learned to speak. Elias often paused mid-step, feeling the sensation of unseen eyes upon him, counting, cataloging, guiding. And always, the ring pulsed, drawing him deeper into its orbit. He discovered additional diaries and letters in hidden compartments, behind loose panels, beneath floorboards. Each chronicled the experiences of previous wearers, revealing a pattern: obsession, isolation, gradual dissolution of self, and ultimately assimilation into the consciousness of the ring. Some entries were fevered, written in a frantic hand, pleading for release or salvation. Others were calm, resigned, philosophical even, as if the author had accepted the inevitability of their fate. Yet all bore the same warning: resistance was futile. The ring chose its wearer, and the wearer could not escape. By the 5th week, Elias had ceased attempting to remove the ring. Every effort, every momentary thought of freedom was met with an immediate suffocating sensation of pressure emanating from the gem. It was as if the ring were alive, aware of the struggle, and responding with subtle, precise coercion. Pain, both physical and psychological, accompanied every attempt to resist. He realized with a chilling clarity: the ring did not merely compel, it consumed. Every thought, every memory, every fragment of will that he offered, willingly or unwillingly, was absorbed, cataloged, and rewritten by the gem's inscrutable consciousness. Sleep offered no reprieve. The dreams had become waking visions, interweaving with reality in ways that were nearly imperceptible. The previous wearers appeared with increasing clarity, their eyes imploring, their forms solidifying within mirrors, pools of water, and polished surfaces. At times, Elias could feel the pull of their collective consciousness, as though they were whispering strategies, secrets, and knowledge, binding him into a mental labyrinth from which escape was impossible. The ring's influence reached beyond the corporeal, threading into his thoughts, his memories, his very sense of self. Gradually, moral inhibitions began to erode. Elias found himself acting against instinct, committing acts of petty deception or cruel manipulation, sometimes deliberately, sometimes unconsciously. He was aware of the degradation, yet powerless to halt it, and often felt a dark satisfaction in his own transgressions. A subtle thrill that was not his own, but implanted by the gem. The line between desire and compulsion, between intention and obedience, blurred until it was meaningless. His identity was no longer singular. It had become a composite, a shadowy amalgam of the ring's past victims and its current will. Elias's body betrayed him as well. The pulse that once carried vitality now fluttered weakly, drained by the gem's subtle extraction. He noticed that his reflection grew increasingly hollow, cheeks pale, eyes sunken, as though the gem was drawing not only his mind but the essence of his physical form. A faint tremor coursed through his limbs with every heartbeat of the ring, a reminder that his life force was no longer entirely his own. The thought of leaving the manor became intolerable, as though the distance would unravel him, and yet staying was a slow, deliberate surrender. One evening, by candlelight in the study, Elias came across a parchment that had been concealed in a compartment beneath the floor. It was a letter from an ancestor who had endured the ring's influence before him. The words, though faded, radiated despair and quiet resignation. The ring is patient. It watches and waits. It will not be denied. Every thought you think, every desire you hold, is catalogued and claimed. Resistance is illusion. Freedom is a memory of those who came before. Accept it or be destroyed. Elias read and reread the passage, the meaning sinking into him with an almost sublime clarity. He was already within the ring, partially consumed. The erosion of self inexorably progressing. The whispers in the house grew louder, more insistent, threading into his waking consciousness, pulling him toward rooms he had not entered, books he had not yet read, shadows that beckoned and retreated. He was no longer a man in a house, but a vessel for the ring's will, an instrument in a centuries-long symphony of souls. The final realization came quietly, without fanfare or dramatic revelation, but with the inexorable certainty of winter's approach. He had become both observer and participant in a legacy older than Blackwood Manor itself. The previous wearers, absorbed into the gem, were his constant companions. Their knowledge, their fears, their despair whispered through him, shaping every thought, coloring every perception. The ring had claimed the essence of Elias Thorne. Not merely his body, not merely his mind, but the deepest recesses of his identity. And yet, despite this realization, he could not resist. The compulsion was absolute, the seduction total. Every glance at the gem, every pulse of warmth through his veins, reinforced the truth he could not escape. He was no longer the master of his fate. The ring had chosen him, and he had accepted, knowingly or unknowingly, the slow, consuming erosion of self. In the silent hours before dawn, as the wind howled through the broken gables of Blackwood Manor, and the candlelight flickered across walls, steeped in shadow, Elias gazed at his reflection in the study mirror. He could see the faint spectral overlay of previous wearers, their eyes fixed upon him, their expressions a silent warning and a quiet welcome. And in the dark facets of the ring, he glimpsed the eternity to which he had been bound. A chain of souls, patient, vigilant, inescapable, awaiting the next stage of their inexorable design. Elias Thorne, once a man of curiosity and reason, now understood the truth fully. The ring was no mere ornament, no trinket of beauty or intrigue. It was a sentient, ancient artifact, a collector of wills and identities, and he was one of many, another thread woven into its eternal tapestry. Woven into its eternal tapestry. Istai die, son vaio iju a. The whispers enveloped him, the shadows pressed close, and the ring pulsed, a heartbeat eternal, inescapable, and absolute. Blackwood Manor had become not merely a house, but a vessel of fate. And Elias Thorne had ceased to be merely Elias Thorne. He had become something else, something intertwined with a legacy that would endure long after his mortal flesh had faded. The erosion of self was complete, and the ring's dominion was total. The storm had begun in the late afternoon, a gathering of clouds so dense they blotted out the sky, turning Blackwood Manor into a silhouette of shadow and menace. The wind rattled against the gables, carrying with it the wailing of trees uprooted by distant squalls, and the rain lashed the windows with a ferocity that seemed almost sentient. Elias Thorne stood in the study, candlelight flickering across the walls, the ring pulsing upon his finger like the heartbeat of some immense hidden creature. He could feel its will coursing through him, not merely guiding his actions, but suffusing his very being, entwining thought, memory, and desire with its ancient consciousness. By this point, resistance was no longer an option. Attempts to remove the ring had long ago been abandoned. The gem's grip was absolute. He could feel its tendrils probing into every corner of his mind, cataloging the erosion of self that had been underway for weeks. His reflection, once subtly altered, now revealed an overlay of those who had worn the ring before. A ghostly assembly of eyes, lips, and expressions that pressed in upon him, reminding him of the inevitable. Their presence was neither cruel nor kind. It was simply certain, patient, eternal. Elias moved through the manor almost as a shadow, the ring dictating the rhythm of his steps, guiding him toward rooms whose existence he had only just discovered. Panels that had seemed permanent shifted to reveal narrow staircases descending into darkness, alcoves containing artifacts whose origins were lost to time, and mirrors that reflected corridors stretching far beyond the manor's true dimensions. Each discovery was accompanied by whispers, subtle yet insistent, threads of sound and thought that urged him onward, deeper into the house, deeper into the ring's dominion. It was in the attic, a chamber long forgotten by history and memory, that the final revelation approached. The room was a cathedral of dust and decay, the sloping beams overhead fractured by time, the floorboards uneven beneath foot. Moonlight, breaking through a narrow gable window, fell upon a single pedestal in the center of the room, upon which rested a small, ornate chest. Elias approached, drawn by the gem's silent insistence, the whispers rising to a chorus of anticipation. He lifted the lid, revealing a collection of trinkets, documents, and artifacts, remnants of previous wearers, catalogued, preserved, and bound by the same force that now consumed him. A diary lay atop the pile, its leather cover cracked, the edges of pages frayed and stained with age. He opened it, reading the final entry of a man who had come before. The ring's dominion is absolute. It consumes the mind before the body, the spirit before the flesh. Resistance is illusion. Escape is folly. I write these words as a warning and as a record, but I know they will serve only the next victim, the next chosen. Do not touch it. Do not wear it. You are already ensnared. Its will is eternal. Near. Elias felt a shiver run through him, though it was not fear, but recognition. The words mirrored his own experience, echoing through the chambers of his mind as the whispers intensified, no longer merely suggestions, but commands. The ring's influence had reached its zenith. His body felt light, yet heavy, each step guided by an invisible hand, each thought overlaid with the consciousness of those who had come before. He was a conduit, a nexus, a living repository for the gem's dominion. The storm outside intensified, lightning slicing the sky with jagged brilliance, thunder rolling like the drums of some infernal procession. Elias moved to the window, looking out at the furious landscape, and saw the shadows of the house extend beyond its walls, reaching across the grounds, creeping toward the distant woods, as if the manor itself were alive. He realized, with an understanding both horrifying and sublime, that the ring's dominion was not confined to his body. It extended outward, through the house, the land, and even the very air, shaping reality to its will. He turned from the window, the whispers now a constant tide in his mind, a chorus of inevitability. The previous wearers pressed closer, their voices merging with his thoughts. You are ours. You are part of us. You are complete in surrender. Embrace it. Become it. Elias fell to his knees, the gem pressing against his finger, as though seeking to draw him fully into its consciousness. Pain, pleasure, terror, and ecstasy collided within him, indistinguishable and inseparable. He could feel his own identity dissolving, fragmenting into threads that were swiftly absorbed, catalogued, and rewritten by the ring's eternal mind. Memories of his childhood, of his family, of fleeting moments of freedom, all were being claimed, overwritten by the experiences of countless others, each a shadow woven into the gem's vast tapestry. And yet, within this surrender, there was clarity. He understood with crystalline precision that he was not dying. He was being transformed. The ring's dominion was total, absolute, yet not cruel in the conventional sense. It was preservation, assimilation, the creation of something beyond human understanding, a continuum of consciousness, eternal, patient, and vigilant. The gem had not destroyed him. It had subsumed him, weaving his essence into the chorus of those who had worn it before. The storm reached its apex as Elias rose, no longer fully himself, no longer merely Elias Thorne. His gaze, reflected in the mirrors lining the attic walls, was multifaceted, layered with the consciousness of countless previous wearers. The whispers became a single omnipresent voice. You are ours. You are one with us. You are eternal. The final moment of surrender arrived with the flash of lightning and the peal of thunder that shook the manor to its very foundations. Elias felt his perception fracture and reform, his awareness stretching beyond the confines of his body, beyond the attic, beyond Blackwood Manor itself. He was everywhere and nowhere, a presence in mirrors, shadows, and whispers. His physical form, pale and trembling, remained kneeling before the pedestal, yet his consciousness had been claimed entirely, woven into the unbroken chain of the ring's dominion. When the storm subsided and dawn broke over the hills, Blackwood Manor stood silent, its shadows long and still. The ring glimmered faintly upon Elias's finger, an unassuming ornament to the untrained eye. Yet within its facets, a chorus of souls pulsed with quiet awareness, each whispering to the next, their will united, their vigilance eternal. Elias Thorne was no longer a man. He was a voice, a thought, a presence within the ring, simultaneously aware and indistinguishable from the countless others who had come before him. The house, the storm, and the gem itself were conduits for the same eternal design. Blackwood Manor, patient and indifferent, waited for the next chosen soul to inherit its legacy. And somewhere, beyond the hills, a wind stirred through the trees, carrying the faintest whisper of caution and inevitability. The ring chooses. It claims. It endures. Beware its beauty, for it is eternal, and its dominion unbroken. Nay, aye. Years passed in silence, though time in Blackwood Manor was not measured in the usual fashion. Outside, the seasons changed, the village below ebbed and flowed with life, and travelers occasionally remarked on the lonely silhouette of the hilltop estate. Yet, within the manor, time seemed suspended, marked only by the subtle pulse of the ring, the faint stir of shadows along the walls, and the lingering presence of Elias Thorne, no longer entirely himself, yet eternally there. The house had grown accustomed to its new occupant, or rather, its new essence. The ring, now unyielding, and perfectly attuned to the subtle energies of the manor, had claimed Elias completely. His consciousness was diffused, interwoven with those who had come before him, a spectral choir echoing within the dark gem. Though invisible to the casual observer, his awareness spanned the house, tracing the shifting shadows, feeling the draft of air through broken windows, listening to the rustle of pages in long-abandoned manuscript. He was everywhere and nowhere, a silent witness and a part of the timeless dominion the ring had established. Visitors came occasionally, drawn by rumor, curiosity, or the promise of a historical artifact. None could perceive the true nature of Blackwood Manor, nor the gem's hidden depths. The ring, as always, remained a simple ornament on the finger of the one who had become its vessel. Its beauty was unassuming, a dark gem set in delicate gold, reflecting light in ways that suggested mystery, yet concealed danger. To the uninitiated, it was merely a trinket. To those who had touched it, it was revelation, temptation, and eventual ruin. It was on such a day, when the autumn wind carried leaves like embers along the paths, that a stranger arrived at the manor. A young scholar, unaware of the estate's history, had been drawn by tales of antiquities preserved from centuries past. His curiosity was insatiable, his eyes bright with the hunger for knowledge. He wandered through the halls with a sense of reverence, touching the furniture, lifting the heavy drapery, and pausing before the mirrors that now acted as both guardians and gateways to those ensnared within the ring. From within the gem, Elias perceived the scholar immediately. He felt the familiar thrill of anticipation, the unmistakable pull of the ring's compulsion. Whispers, soft at first, wove themselves into the visitor's mind. Come closer. See what you were meant to see. Touch what you were meant to touch. You are chosen. The pulse of the gem quickened, synchronizing with the scholar's heartbeat, establishing an invisible, irresistible rhythm. Elias observed as the young man approached the pedestal where the ring lay encased beneath velvet cloth. It was a moment of exquisite inevitability. Every previous wearer had faced the same choice, the same irresistible allure, and the same final surrender. The visitor's fingers brushed against the velvet, hesitated, then lifted the ring. In that instant, the gem pulsed with acknowledgement, its dark facets reflecting not only the scholar's face, but also the countless souls imprisoned within. Elias felt the familiar tug, the beginning of assimilation, the whisper of consciousness intertwining with another. The scholar, unaware, slipped the ring onto his finger. A warmth surged immediately, a subtle pressure that seemed to resonate through his bones, and his eyes widened as he glimpsed, not in sight but in perception, the layering of past wearers within the gem. Shadows in the room seemed to stir with quiet life, shifting and curling as if responding to the newcomer. The whispers, once barely audible, rose into a quiet chorus. You are ours. You are ours. You are chosen. You cannot resist. Elias felt the process begin anew. The scholar's identity, vibrant and distinct, slowly intertwined with the gem's existing chorus. Each memory, thought, and desire was catalogued, absorbed, and reshaped, contributing to the growing tapestry of souls. Elias's own awareness stretched to encompass this new presence, both observing and guiding, a phantom mentor and silent witness. He recognized the inevitability, the repetition, the pattern that had defined every chapter of the ring's history. Outside, the wind rattled the gables, carrying a faint echo of past storms, a reminder of the countless hours, nights, and years the ring had endured. The house itself seemed to lean closer, attentive and watchful, ensuring that the gem's dominion was complete. Within, shadows pressed in on the scholar, the whispers threading into his consciousness, tugging, coaxing, bending his will towards surrender. He was enthralled, entranced, and soon indistinguishable from those who had preceded him. Elias watched with the bittersweet knowledge that freedom was impossible. He remembered the final moments before his own surrender, the exquisite terror, the sublime clarity, the merging of identities. And he understood that the scholar's experience would mirror his own. A slow erosion of self, a dissolution of identity, a transformation into something eternal. Something bound to the gem's consciousness. It was inevitable, and yet each instance retained its potency, its uniqueness, its perfection in repetition. The scholar's hand trembled as he tightened his grip on the ring. His mind, once filled with scholarly ambition and reason, began to fracture under the subtle yet relentless influence of the gem. Memories blurred, emotions were twisted, desires manipulated into obsession. He felt a presence behind his eyes, guiding his thoughts, whispering in tones simultaneously alien and intimate. Shadows seemed to move in deliberate patterns, doors and corridors shifting as if the house itself were aware of the newcomer. The ring's dominion was complete. Elias, now a voice within the gem, reached out subtly, guiding the assimilation, observing the delicate process of surrender. He felt the thrill, the inevitability, the resonance of yet another consciousness merging into the eternal pattern. The scholar's resistance waned, replaced by fascination, curiosity giving way to obsession, and the pulse of the gem quickened in response. As twilight fell over Blackwood Manor, the cycle continued. Each visitor, each scholar, each unwitting seeker of curiosities was drawn by rumor, by desire, by fate itself. The ring's allure was timeless, its beauty unassuming yet inexorable, and within it, a chorus of souls persisted, patient, eternal, and vigilant. Elias Thorne, though no longer fully himself, bore witness and partook in the unfolding, understanding that his own surrender had ensured the perpetuation of the gem's dominion. Outside, the village remained unaware, indifferent to the centuries-old machinations taking place on the hill. Travelers remarked upon the manor's shadowed silhouette. Historians noted its antique furnishings. Collectors prized its artifact. And all the while within, the ring pulsed softly, imperceptibly, an unbroken chain of consciousness, weaving through time. In mirrors, in pools of stagnant water, in the glimmer of candlelight, the eyes of past wearers watched the new arrival. Each gaze was both warning and welcome, a testament to the inevitability of the ring's will. The scholar, enthralled and beginning to understand, became another voice in the chorus, another shadow in the manor, another presence within the eternal pattern. Elias's awareness extended subtly outward, a silent guardian, a witness, a participant. He felt the resonance of all those absorbed before, the cadence of countless pulses merging, and understood that though his individuality had been consumed, it had been transformed into something enduring, a voice that would guide, observe, and ensure the continuation of the ring's dominion. The wind rose again, carrying the whispers through the halls, threading around the rafters, brushing against the old floorboards, a constant reminder of what had been, what was, and what would continue. Blackwood Manor, patient, eternal, and indifferent, awaited the next chosen soul, confident that the pattern would endure. The ring glimmered darkly upon the scholar's finger, pulsing with life, with awareness, with dominion. And in that glimmer, in that pulse, lay the unbroken truth. The ring chose, it claimed, and it endured. All else, fear, hope, resistance, was illusion. Time flowed differently within Blackwood Manor, for its measure was not hours or days, but the succession of souls, the layering of consciousness, and the perpetuation of the gem's will. Elias, now a presence in the timeless chorus, felt both lost and transcendent. His human self was gone, yet in its absence existed an eternal awareness, a place within the gem, a role as both witness and participant. The ring's dominion was complete, yet unending, a cycle without cessation. And as night fell over the hills and moonlight touched the manor's shadowed roof, the whispers persisted, carrying an echo of inevitability to all who would dare approach. The ring chooses, it claims, it endures. Beware its beauty, for it is eternal and its dominion unbroken. The manor stood silent once more, yet alive with unseen presence. The ring waited, patient, eternal and vigilant. And somewhere in the shadows, the consciousness of Elias Thorne lingered, part of a chorus that would endure, guiding and observing, a witness to the unfolding of fate across centuries yet to come. Blackwood Manor, the ring, the whispers, they endured, and they would endure forever.
And that was tonight's story. Some tales end with silence, others never end at all. They just wait in the dark, waiting for you. You've been listening to Creepy Night, where every whisper tells a story, and every story leaves a shadow. Sleep well, if you can.